For the first time anywhere, this is the world premiere of the new Men at Work album, Cargo. Direct from Melbourne, Australia, Men at Work.
Where did the name Men at Work come from?
Well, we won it in a raffle, Bob.
Really?
No.
What was second prize?
Well, second prize. Oh, you got me there.
He took you up on that one, mate.
He did too. We sent away for it, actually.
It's on the back of a comic book. Said, you know,
Right in.
Send 15 cents and we'll send you the best band name that we've got.
Came off the street, actually. Came off the street. Men at Work signs are big in Australia, where guys stand around and have Men at Work signs, and there's 10 of them, and one of them works and 9 of them watch you.
That's right.
You have the equivalent here, but it's called Men Working, I think.
That's right.
Similar sort of thing happens everywhere in the world, you know, councils working on the roads.
That's right. We like the idea of doing a job where one person worked and the rest just sort of did nothing.
Who is the one person that works? Is it Colin?
Oh,
No,
no, it's sort of by raffle.
Yeah, it's a rostering system.
Yeah.
It depends.
Your turn tonight.
It depends when the boss comes round too, you know, whoever happens to be in the trench.
Tell me a little bit about how you guys got started. You came from, let's start with you, Colin. You came from Scotland.
Long time ago.
14 years old.
Yeah. 15 years I've been in Australia.
Grew up, your father had a music store?
Yeah.
Is that right? So that was the whole influence, music
Yeah, I
was
used to
your
hear
life?
all the hits before anyone else. So I was always pretty cocky because I went to school on Monday and had heard the hits and knew the words, you know, that kind of thing.
And then you went to Australia when you were 14.
Yeah. And,
Why? What was the reason that your family decided to move to Australia?
well, my father wanted to go to Australia because he was sick of the weather.
And he was a criminal.
Wasn't it right? Yes, he embezzled the music store. No, he was worried about my chest, my wheezing problem.
When you were 14, were you already planning a career as far as music was concerned?
Oh, I wasn't really planning anything when I was 14. I was planning on, you know, sort of, you know, how to talk to that girl up the street.
Right. But you were playing instruments? Were you involved in music at that point?
I played guitar. I started to learn guitar in Scotland. That was before, you know, from this girl who I also was totally in love with. She was 16. She was a real woman.
Yeah.
And I was 12. And she taught me how to play my first chords on the guitar, Bob. And yeah, then what happened? And came out to Australia and met a few guys that played. We used to play through the one amplifier. When I was 15, there was three guitars going in the one amplifier, and I really impressed them because I knew the chords to the House of the Rising Sun.
So how old were you when you met Ron Strykert?
Oh, I met Ron when I was getting on, 1977. I met Greg probably in 73, sort of probably around then, I think.
I have a hard time seeing, with that powerful saxophone and Who Can It Be Now, I have a hard time seeing you just, that's such a powerful sax. You play flute, you play keyboards, you play...
Yeah, well, my sax actually has got a 2-stroke motor attached to it. That, it helps me out. It's got a small compressor that I use. It
He's
really
also
fast
got 3 lungs.
Really?
When I first met Greg, he didn't play any musical instruments at all, which was
How old were you then?
21 or something.
Yeah, I was 21.
But then I used to go and visit him, and he was always in the back room practicing. You little conscientious devil, you.
That's right. Well, I had nothing better to do. I was on the dole, and I used to borrow this. What, me?
On the dole,
I was on the dole, and I used to borrow this girl's flute that she had a flute that she didn't play, but she kept scrupulously clean, and I played it, but I never cleaned it at all. And you know, I used to play it after dinner and just put it straight back into the case again. So eventually,
did you really?
Yeah, she repossessed. She goes, "What's this?
What's this bit of scallop in there?"
That's right. There's these boogies all over it. So I was forced to buy a flute for myself. So I went on from there.
But you were 21 before you learned really to play an instrument?
Yeah.
Gee, and here, how old are you now, Greg?
29.
I mean, you weren't serious musicians up until a few years ago.
Well, we're still not that
serious. It sounds pretty serious. You just set a record for the longest period of time at #1 on the Billboard charts for a new group, yeah. Which has stood for since 1966.
Since the Monkees.
Sounds pretty serious to me.
Yeah, in that sense it is. I mean, statistically speaking. Just after high school, I met Jerry Spicer at university. Who's Jerry and drums, and and I met Russell Depler, who's a manager who has been as well since the start.
Uh-huh.
And I met Ron just after I left there, university, and we started working together just as an acoustic duo playing 12 strings, and that's when we wrote Down Under. Actually, Down Under was about 5 years old.
Really that old?
Yeah. We used to play in little bars and have 80 or 100 people sort of singing along to it. Just occasionally they come along and get nostalgic and cry in their beer about how they were there when we used to play it, and why don't we play those places anymore?
But you weren't playing in high school at all, any of you?
Yeah, I was playing high school, but you know, garage bands, high school bands, soul music. Jerry has played for years, since he was 14 or 15 bands. John has played. John's probably the most musically trained of the whole band. He did sort of 5 or 6 years at the conservatorium and has played all different kinds of music. He's a classically trained pianist.
He plays piano since he was 5.
Okay, let's go through the group. That's what we should do. We're running all these names down. You do vocals.
Yeah, and play guitar.
And Greg, you play sax, flute, strings, keyboards.
Yeah. Greg does everything that none of the others do.
Anything that nobody else does.
If we've got a part or we've got an idea for something, we go, "What? You're not doing much there, are you?"
Sousaphone might be great in there. Well, don't play the sousaphone.
Well, we can buy
one.
one. Come on, you can do it.
So then who else is in the group besides the two of you? There are 5 of you, right?
Yes, 5 players and
So-
1 manager. John Reese plays the bass.
And John is really the most serious musician of all, you say. When I use the term serious, I mean...
Oh, that's tricky.
No.
Yeah, he'd be the most classically trained anyway, because he studied piano. He actually studied violin at the conservatorium. I think he did 5 years at the conservatorium playing violin, and I think bass was his last instrument. So he's also a multi-instrumentalist, and perhaps the most eccentric person in the band.
In what way?
Well, he's
eccentric.
He's mad.
Yeah?
What more can I say?
Is that the reason they didn't ask him to come down today? Is that
Well, actually, he's locked in at the moment.
Jerry's the anchor man, really, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, he's very much...
Very much a perfectionist as a player. He's a traditionalist in his approach to his instrument, in that his dedication's there, and he's also very open, very sort of moves. He's not like doesn't stay in the one place, but he's great to have in terms of a drummer, because he still practices. You know, he lays it down all the time.
We'll go down there an hour before we're supposed to be there, so that he can
Tune his
have
drums and-
drums all set up and everything.
Then there's...
Here's Rono. He's the youngest in the band, and he plays guitar like no one else. He's
got a very
his
spontaneous
lines,
sort
it
of
just
style.
comes out.
Well, he plays lead and you play rhythm
Yeah,
more?
it's
More
kind of a
rhythm?
bit. He plays more solos than I do. I mean, that's kind of, he dances his guitar playing very much. The guitar work very much complements each other, but we both play rhythmically, and it comes from, I think, we both play acoustics arguably better than electric.
So you do vocals. Who else does vocals with it?
Well, everybody sings.
Everybody does?
Yeah, I do like probably 80 or 90% of the lead vocals, but everyone throws in some harmony lines, and Greg probably does the most singing. Greg and I sing quite a lot together, and Ron sings, and John sings, Jerry sings. Everyone has little parts they sing.
Wasn't there a point where you were playing with
Well,
with
what
Ron
happened
and-
was I was playing with Ron acoustically. Jerry came down one day and said, "Look, you know, he was in a band we'd broken up, or a couple of them had gone to follow something else, and so Jerry came down, and we basically formed a three-piece thing, mainly writing songs. I had songs, and we had for about a week. It was like that. It was going to be hopeless, because I was going to have to play electric guitar, which I was very unused to. All the guitars. Ron played bass. Jerry played drums. Then we played at a hotel, and Greg. It was all in the space of a couple of weeks. Greg joined us, and then. You know, we played together in this little place called the Grace Darling. We used to play for the Drunks. You know,
What was the name of it?
Grace Darling Hotel in Collingwood in Melbourne. And that was when we first played, and we just played for the Drunks there, and you know, and food. You know,
Mostly our
friends. Yeah. and then we asked, and Greg came to the party, and then a lot of the songs we'd written were kind of written on 2 guitars, really, and it wasn't quite sounding right. So Jerry said, I asked John to play bass. He was playing in a jazz band. John played a lot of jazz. And so Ron switched back to guitar, and it was 5-piece. And then Russell came down from living up the country because he was figuring out what he was going to do, whether he was going to go into economics, and a big firm decided that really didn't want to do that, so he came down and started managing us, and it went away like that. And that's sort of basically.
That was what? So then you were.
That was middle of '79.
Middle of '79.
Yeah, and we started just doing residency in a place called the Cricketer's Arms on a Thursday night, which we did for a year.
Cricketer's Arms. Tell me about the Cricketer's Arms.
Cricketer's Arms is a little hotel just near the major cricket field in Melbourne called the Melbourne Cricket Ground, the MCG, and it's a tiny little hotel that Colin and Ron used to play in as the acoustic duo, and when we got the band together, the owner of the pub, Joe Taylor, wanted the band. On good nights, it'd cram 150 to 200 people there. So it was really, you were very close to your audience. We certainly found out what worked and what didn't. I mean, there were drunks sort of leaning over us, you know, going, "What, you guys play cocaine for us?" Or, you know, and sort of, you know, knocking the ash into the end of my saxophone and...
falling into the drums.
That's right, falling into the drums and knocking things over. There was no stage. We were just sitting there right on their level, which is, in one way, it's quite confronting, and Colin had a little bit of trouble with his chest occasionally. I mean, I'd look over and Colin would be singing and there'd be some guy with a cigarette going, you know, and his face would disappear into this cloud of smoke while he's trying to sing. So it was a trying time, but at the same time, it was a fantastic experience.
And being so close to the group, to the audience, you knew immediately whether it worked or not.
You know, that's right. Well, when the whole front row turned green and it sort of went, yes, we knew there was a problem with the song. Yeah.
Really, no group, if you really analyze it, no group has been able to hit as many different countries, as many different, I mean, it's here in the United States, the black population, the white population,
That's really interesting.
men, women, total mass appeal. Nobody's done that really since the Beatles.
The black stations are sort of playing us. I heard, when we were in New York, I heard black stations playing our song, which was...
Are you surprised?
Oh, that was just, it took me by surprise, you know, you listen to some... It's kind of, and then you hear sort of our song come on. And
so,
in France too, I mean, places like France, you know, where you cross the language border, you know, where you play music that obviously don't know what you're talking about, but it's sort of, we sold more copies of Who Could It Be Now in France than what we did in Australia.
Video has been a very important part of Men at Work, the videos in the US. Was that planned? Was that?
Well, they're fun.
It wasn't planned that they should be an important part, but we saw them as being a vehicle for expressing things about the songs and about ourselves that seemed to grow. It wasn't hard for us to do that first one, and after doing the first one, we were able to put a video together with all our ideas that really had something to do with the song. I mean, I think that's the success of the videos, is that they tie in with the lyrics. I mean, first of all, we're dealing with songs that have a story to them. But Colin's songs have got the storyline that's very easy. We can sit down, okay, and we can just
they're very
think.
simple,
Stupid stories. But they're, you know, you can sit down and think of good sort of situations and things that you'd like to act out yourself. I mean, we've indulged ourselves terribly in those film clips.
You said that you wrote Down Under some 5 years ago, and you were playing Who Can It Be Now and Be Good Johnny. Those were songs that you were playing in the clubs, right, in Australia.
Yeah.
And so there were record people around who could have come in and signed you to, I mean, you didn't automatically get together and start and then sign a contract with the record company.
No, we were also playing some other songs that were a bit odd, a bit strange. So they might come in and hear 10 minutes of, you know, kind of different kind of music and think, oh no, that's not going to happen, you know. Peter Carpin came along, came back from New York and was working for CBS, and he's like a perfect Men at Work fan, you know, around 30, short, close-cropped beard, went to Caulfield Grammar, went to a good school.
Used to be a hippie.
Yeah,
probably
was, yeah. Probably not a real one, but, you know, probably like sort of got in because maybe, you know, he might score, you know.
That's how it came about with CBS. Is that it?
With Peter, yeah.
Yeah, he saw the potential in the commercial potential in the songs. I mean, that's basically why he signed it. He liked the band.
But even he was a little bit confused. I think even the people that stayed, say, and saw a whole set would be confused because they couldn't just go back and say, right, we've got a fantastic hard rock band here, or we've got a great disco funk band here, or we've got a great Christian gospel band here, you know, because they'd go back and go, what was that band? You know, what were they doing, and why were they doing it?
And they'd ask us, and we wouldn't know.
Well, didn't you guys sit around some nights and say, geez, maybe, you know, how much was it that you made at the Cricketers Arms when you played there?
$10 a week.
Each. We did that for other places we played. See, we'd go to Sydney, right, and we'd lose $3,000 because it cost so much to do it, you know, for a week, and we'd play to 14 people who wanted to hear Van Halen or AC/DC, you know, who, you know, we couldn't do that, you know. I mean, we could have done it and made a real mess of it, you know. We'd go up and play our stuff, and people would just sit there and go, huh? We made nothing out of it, for one thing. I mean, that's not really, it was never our guiding light because of the fact that we made no money for a long period of time. You know, we're all on the dole and, you know, stuff like that. Well, some of us were. You know, I was, and Ronno was, and I don't know, people did various other little jobs to make a quid, you know. Used to teach, Greg used to teach saxophone and flute, and he used to open his case on a Friday morning after he played at the Cricketers Arms, and his students used to nearly throw up because it smelled so dreadful.
Well, what's that smell, sir? It smells just like beer. Oh, no. The worst potential of it was that if you didn't get to record at some stage, you would just break up because you couldn't keep on doing those same things over and over again. I mean, we wanted to record. We felt like we were ready to record and we're ready to do, you know, we had the songs that we thought were ready for it, and nobody was knocking on our door. And if I don't know how much longer we would have kept on going without some record company interest.
No one was interested, and then Carpen came along and sort of, we went out to a few dinners and skirted the subject.
Yes, hummed and hawed about it. And finally said, well, do you want to sign us? And he goes, well, yes. If you will have the dessert. Peter McKeon produced both the albums, and he happened to be in Australia at the time. We were going to record a single, and we were looking around for a producer. And we also went out to dinner with him too, by some stroke of luck. He was in the same place, and we struck up a drunken friendship. And he came and produced the first single, Who Can It Be Now? And that worked okay. It was the first time we'd been in a studio where we actually listened back to something and it sounded okay to us, you know. So then that worked, and then we went into the studio and did the album.
What did he add? What did Peter McKeon, the producer, add?
Objectivity, sort of.
Bit of studio expertise. He gave us confidence to be able to go in and play and be able to accept what he said was good and what wasn't good enough. You know, I mean, that was a great situation, because when we did it by ourselves, you know, somebody would say, oh, that's not good enough. Someone else would go, oh, that's great, you know, but I mean, nobody could ever kind of work it out. Whereas if you have somebody that's separate, then you can accept what they say.
I want to start out by asking why the album's called Cargo. Is there any reason that I should know about that you titled it Cargo?
It had that whole element to it. I remember listening to it, it sounded really quite, to me, it sounded like a great big sort of ship to me, like a big, you know, like a container. It got all those things to me, container cargo, sort of all that. And then it got down to the thing of, well, you know, us throwing out, you know, this is what we've got, this is our cargo, you know, and it goes out to all these sort of stores all around the world, and it's just, it had that men at work quality to it. It's just, here you go, this is our piece, this is our piece of cargo, you know, sort of, and it's a nice word, and it has lots of nice connotations, and it seems to sort of roll off the tongue pretty easily.
How do you look at the Grammys, and how was it getting that award and performing at the Grammys?
The thing in America, the Grammys is, it's a prestigious award, and it reaches a lot more people than, say, our music would reach normally. So I think what's happened is we've established ourselves in the world of music, and not just rock and roll music.
It obviously means a lot more to people over here than we realised it meant, because people are really vibed up about it, and the phones have been running hot.
Since then, huh?
That's right, and people I've never met before have met me half a dozen times previously, and yeah, it's great actually. I think we're all picking up a little bit of the excitement that everybody else feels for us, you know. But it's just hard when it's not part of your background.
Yeah.
To just to relate what a Grammy means.
Well, it's a real prestigious award, becoming looking at the lineup of people who have been there, who've gotten that particular award.
Yeah.
Were you pretty confident you were going to get the award?
I wasn't really confident, wasn't really anything, you know.
Everybody kept on telling us that we're going to get it. And Jerry, you had a funny experience though, didn't you?
Yeah, I was with these Canadian people, radio station, and I was speaking. The first guy I spoke to said, "Oh look, we're all excited up here. We know you're going to win it. There's no doubt." And I was saying, well, I think you know, there's some pretty tough competition there, and you know, this person saying, no, it's you'll win it for sure. Then in the next interview, the fellow asked me, well, how do you feel about the Grammys? And so, vibing off the guy I just spoke to, I said, oh well, fairly confident. You know, we might have a good chance of pulling it off. And then he said to me, well, I don't know. There's some pretty tough competition there.
What happened after you got the award that particular night? Was there a party or?
2 parties.
Yeah.
First we went through the corrals, the stockyards.
Gauntlet.
So
Stockyard.
What was that?
Woof, woof. Ladies and gentlemen, our prime cider beef. Network. Take the photos. Click.
Oh yeah.
This way.
Yes.
Over here. Straight afterwards, yeah. I mean, straight afterwards there was a whole press thing of 100 photographers, and you go into one tent, and you go into another tent, and you go into another tent, and you just sort of, you know, people shoot questions at you and take photos, and over here, quick here, hey, look this way, and they're all fighting with each other to get pickies.
Oh, great.
But after that was all over, there was a party at the Biltmore Hotel where they had, you know, for 2,000 or 3,000 people with a new wave band and in one room, and a string quartet in another room, and Count Basie and his orchestra were playing in another room, and
It's great.
you know, it was quite bizarre. It was quite, and everyone with tuxedos on, and you know, in that time it was really funny just walking down, and that really got across to me of what it meant to a lot of other people. You know, just all the pats on the back and the handshakes and the hey.
Was there a sort of look at these guys doing this thing, sort of feeling that you guys have toward the U.S. or the U.S. record business?
Yeah, Australians have a different idea. They have different ideas about success, you know, and they approach it in a different way. And I think that is sort of a general thing. But then again, it comes down to the way people personally orientate themselves. But you know, the Australian sort of idea of success is, well, sure, you know, but you guys, whatever it is, it's to be things are supposed to be brought down, you know. Whereas over here, I get the impression that people are really they're into success. They like it, you know. It's not something that people are to be criticised for, which is a sort of an element that you find in Australia in a way. They hang it on the sort of a working class kind of idea of. I think a lot of people here throw parties in their own minds. I think that's.
Elaborate on that a little bit. What do you mean, throw a party in their own mind?
It's just.
Well, they go, hey, let's do this, and they take a little up, and then half an hour later, oh, better take it down, and then half an hour later, they're back where they were. Hey, having some fun now.